Comparative anatomy of the kidneys of native domestic animals. Donkey, buffalo, camel, goat, and dog. Morphological anatomy. Active learning. Overview. Location. Shape. Structure. Renal pelvis. Comparative points.
Overview. In all domestic animal species, the kidneys are located retroperitoneal, nestled against the lumbar muscles. Typically, the right kidney is positioned slightly more cranially than the left kidney. In buffalo, the left kidney is displaced into the right half of the abdomen due to the presence of the rumen. The renal artery and vein, along with lymphatics, nerves, and the ureter, enter and exit the kidney through a single indentation known as the hilus. The kidneys of domesticated animals demonstrate a diverse range of shapes, colors, and both external and internal structures, particularly in their capsule, cortex, medulla, and pelvis.
The location of the kidney. In all domestic animal species, the two kidneys are situated retroperitoneal, positioned against the lumbar muscles. They are covered to varying degrees by an adipose capsule, known as the capsula adiposa. Each kidney is encased in a protective fibrous capsule, referred to as the capsula fibrosa. Typically, the right kidney is located more cranially than the left and is lodged within the renal fossa of the liver. In contrast, the left kidney tends to be more mobile. Location of the kidney in the donkey. The right kidney is located beneath the last three ribs and the transverse process of the first lumbar vertebra. In contrast, the left kidney is positioned slightly lower than the right kidney, situated beneath the last two ribs and the transverse processes of the first two lumbar vertebrae, influenced by the displacement caused by the stomach. Location of the kidney in the buffalo. The right kidney is positioned beneath the last rib and the transverse processes of the first two or three lumbar vertebrae. In contrast, the left kidney, which has a pendulous shape, is situated to the right of the median plane, beneath the bodies of the third, fourth, and fifth lumbar vertebrae. Location of the kidney in the camel. The location of the right kidney, RK, lies under the second, to the fourth, right transverse processes of the lumbar vertebrae. The location of the left kidney, LK, lies under the left transverse processes of the fifth to seventh lumbar vertebrae. Location of the kidney in the goat. They are localized asymmetrically in sublumbar region, where the right kidney extends from the last rib to the third lumbar transverse process, while the left one extends from the caudal border of the third to the fifth lumbar transverse process. Location of the kidney in the dog. The right kidney was situated ventral to the last rib and the first two lumbar transverse processes, whereas the left kidney was located ventral to the first three lumbar transverse processes. Shape. The kidneys of domesticated animals displayed a variety of shape. In donkeys, both kidneys were smooth, but the left kidney was bean-shaped, whereas the right kidney had a heart shape. Buffaloes, on the other hand, has kidneys characterized by multiple visible lobes on the surface. In camels, goats, and dogs, the kidneys had a smooth, bean-like exterior. Structure of the kidney. The kidneys are enveloped by a fibrous capsule, capsula fibrosa, that is primarily made up of collagen fibers, and perirenal fat, capsula adiposa. The kidneys were primarily supported by adjacent organs and enveloped in the renal fascia, a specialized extension of subperitoneal tissue that encases the kidneys along with little amount of perirenal fat, also known as the adipose capsule, capsula adiposa. The right kidney was more securely anchored due to its connections with the liver. In contrast, the left kidney is positioned in relation to the spleen through the renal splenic ligament. Each kidney featured two surfaces, dorsal and ventral, two borders, medial and lateral, and two poles, cranial and caudal. In the buffalo, the left kidney featured three distinct surfaces: the dorsal convex surface, the ventral less convex surface, an additional ruminal surface that arises due to pressure from the rumen. The renal parenchyma was consisted of two main parts, the outer cortex and the inner medulla. The cortex had a reddish-brown color and a finely granular appearance. In contrast, the medulla was divided into a reddish outer zone and pale inner zone. Near the renal sinus, the medulla projected into the renal pelvis, forming the renal crest. A sagittal section of the buffalo's kidney revealed an outer cortical layer called the cortex, which possessed a dark reddish-brown color with a slightly granular texture. Beneath the cortex, the medulla was organized into several distinct pyramids, which were separated by lighter-colored cortical columns. Notably, there was no visible renal pelvis. Rather, the pyramids connect directly to the ureter through a series of secondary and primary branches. Sagittal section of a camel's kidney. The renal crest has been excised from the left side to expose the underlying structure of the renal pelvis. The labeled components are as follows: 1. Renal capsule. 2. Renal cortex. 3. Corticomedullary zone. 4. Renal pyramids, outer medulla. 5. Inner medulla, walls of collateral recesses. 6. Common renal crest. 7. Wall of renal pelvis. 8. Main cavity of the renal pelvis. 9. Ureter. 10. Perirenal fat. The most basic form of an animal's kidney was the unipapillary type, which had a common renal papilla that consisted of a base adjacent to the cortex and an apex or papilla. Unipapillary kidneys consisted of multiple lobes that might be fused to varying extent. Donkeys, goats, camels, and dogs had unipapillary kidneys, where the lobes are fused to form a single renal crest that empties into the renal pelvis. In contrast, buffaloes possessed multipapillary, multipyramidal kidneys that feature numerous medullary pyramids and papillae. The papillae release urine into extensions of the ureter known as calyces. A photograph captures the internal structure of a left buffalo's kidneys using sagittal sections. This image highlights important features. The renal pelvis. The renal collecting system varies among domestic mammals. The renal pelvis as a common cavity around the renal crest in camels, goats, and dogs. In equines, the renal pelvis is a comparatively small central space with two terminal recesses extending into the renal poles. In buffaloes, the renal pelvis is absent. Renal calyces are evident in cattle and pigs, but they are absent in other domestic mammals. A photograph of the sagittal section of a donkey's left kidney that captures its internal structure. The image highlights 1. The renal fibrous capsule. 2. Renal cortex. 3. Corticomedullary junction. 4. Medullary pyramids. 5. Common renal papilla. 6. Renal pelvis. 7. Terminal recesses. 8. Ureter. 9. Abdominal aorta. Summary of the main comparative anatomical features of the kidneys of native domestic animals: donkey, buffalo, camel, goat, and dog. Thank you. We are looking forward to seeing you in the next moment.